Hey guys, my name is Rick and welcome to Small Project Central. Today I'm going to show you how I took my son-in-law's 7-foot by 9-foot garage office and added a ton of storage that he wanted and he needed. Now let's go! To start this build, I created some drawings for Zay to review and finally settled on a large bank of drawers with a top cabinet to hide his electrical panel. So, using SketchUp, I made some dimensional drawings and cut list optimizer to create cut lists. I cut and labeled all of my parts and began edge banding all the cabinet front edges. And there's nothing more satisfying than using my Vertux tool to trim all the edge banding flush to the panels. Next, I used my 18 gauge pin nailer to hold pieces together while I inserted 2-inch spack screws for assembly. I then added nailer strips to the back of each of the cabinets. Next up, I built a base for the cabinets using pocket holes for the assembly method. The base was 10 inches tall as I had to get the cabinets above a 9-inch cement curb that was in the garage. Okay, for those of you that don't like math, this really helps. What I've done is I took the inside dimensions of my cabinet to outline, where my drawers are going to go, the space between and everything. So what I do is I create this storyboard. On the left, this is my drawer fronts. It shows where they fall, the gaps in between them, etc. And then this board here, this is my slide layout. So I can see visually exactly where those gaps are going to be, etc. So it just gives you a level of confidence that you know that the measurements you've done are right. I then began cutting and labeling all my drawer parts. I went overboard using 3/4 inch for the drawer sides and 1/2 inch plywood for the drawer bottoms. I didn't have any 1/4 inch in my shop at the time, and I wasn't sure what he was going to be putting in the drawers, so I know he won't have to worry about overloading the drawers. I used pocket holes to assemble the drawer sides and then used glue and screws to attach the drawer bottom. And to make sure I'm hitting the center of the drawer sides, I scribed a line 3/8 inch in from the side as a guide to place my screws. I then cut a scrap piece of plywood to help with the placement of the drawer slides in each cabinet. Using my storyboard as a guide, I cut down the plywood guide for each row of drawer slides, working my way from top to bottom. To mount my drawer slides, I used a method I picked up from Matt at MWA Woodworks, where I place the drawer on a flat surface and mount the slide at the bottom of the drawer. So previously I used to mount my drawer slides kind of toward the middle or a little bit toward the bottom or whatever, but after watching the video by MWA Woodworks, man, this just makes perfect sense. You put your slide down, extend it out, mount this part of the slide to the drawer box, and it's going to work out perfect every time. Look at that. Perfect. So I installed the rest of the drawers with the exception of one of the middle drawers. This drawer will be for a printer, and I hadn't quite figured out how I was going to make the drawer front tilt down for access. Next, I began cutting parts for my drawer fronts. This was my first time making shaker style drawer fronts and doors, and since he wanted everything painted, I chose to go with 3/4 inch MDF stiles and rails combined with 1/2 inch MDF for the center panel. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I'm putting together my drawer faces, and I tried a couple different routes. I just did a butt joint with the MDF because I don't have a table saw, certainly don't have a dado stack for a table saw, don't have a router table, so I thought the easiest thing to do would be to join these in a butt joint type fashion. The easiest way. This I'm not confident of, although I am going to use that. Hopefully it doesn't fall apart. The other one I tried was a pocket hole, and sure enough, I don't know if you can see this or not, but it split out the wood. MDF does not like screws unless it's pre-drilled, and so that's not going to work, but I think I can salvage that and make it work. So the next thing I did was I went over to my neighborhood Harbor Freight, because they're the only ones that had something in stock, and I bought myself a little doweling jig. So I'm going to give this a shot and see how it does. I started off using 2 dowels on each joint and quickly realized even with pre-boring the MDF was too weak with holes drilled that close to the edge. So I switched to a single dowel and it seemed to work just fine. So I glued and clamped the frames in preparation for routing for my center panels. If I had to do it over again, I would definitely use poplar for the stiles and rails. Next, I built a countertop using 3/4 inch MDF since this would be painted as well. I used an 1/8 inch roundover bit to knock down the sharp edges and left a gap in the back to allow for scribing to the walls. I gave all the frames a quick sanding and then began routing the grooves for the center panels. At this point, I was regretting using MDF. The amount of dust created was incredible. Thankfully, I had purchased a respirator to avoid breathing in all that dust. I then made a makeshift router table and cut a dado on all the edges of the center panels. This essentially made a half-lap joint with the stiles and rails so the center panel would be flush with the frame on the back side facing the drawer. I then glued and pin nailed the center panels and let them dry overnight. The next morning I loaded up the cabinets and headed over to my daughter's house to start the installation. They literally live around the corner, so it was a quick trip. Alright, today I've got my apprentice, Zay, is learning the fun of install. And so anyway, he's screwing the cabinets together, popping a couple screws, and then we're going to find the studs in the wall and get those mounted nice and firmly to the wall. So you can see this is the back wall to his office here. He's got his mini split in and he's going with black, which I'm pretty excited about. This should look good. All right, Jay got up early this morning and put a coat of primer. Well, actually yesterday he put the primer and today he put top coat of these nice first edition shaker style doors, and then he also painted the cabinet or the countertop. So looking forward to getting these installed today. We finished painting all the edge banding on the cabinets before mounting the drawer fronts. In hindsight, we should have done this prior to installing the cabinets, but it still worked out. Zay and I worked on installing the drawer fronts, and then we got a surprise visit from the inspector, and boy, she did not look happy. I think she was ready for a bottle of milk and bedtime, but the next day she did give us a thumbs up on the finished cabinets. The last thing to complete the project was to figure out how to make a tilt-out drawer front so Zay could access his printer, which will be in the drawer. I couldn't find any specific hardware for this application, so I had to get creative. I started by attaching a build-up strip to the inside of the front of the drawer. I decided to use a small piano hinge, so I took a measurement on the thickness of the hinge and routed out a groove on the bottom front side of the drawer to accommodate the hinge. I then routed a small chamfer on the back of the drawer front to eliminate any potential binding. Next, I added some chain supports to keep the drawer from going past 90 degrees. I would come to regret this later. All right, so I've got this. These are not perfect, but hey, I think it'll work for our purposes. So the last step here, I'm gonna try to stick a couple of magnets in each side here and here as well to see if I can get that to stick once it's up. All right, so the all the trouble I just went through with the magnets, that didn't work because they're weak magnets. So I, just for a temporary fix here until I can figure out something else, I got these super strong magnets from little name tags at work, and sure enough, man, they work like a charm. They hold it tight against it, and so we'll have to figure something else out. If you guys got any suggestions, let me know. So to cover up the metal angle, I modeled and 3D printed some covers. And remember the chains? Yeah, I had to remove them as they were sticking to the magnets, not allowing the drawer front to close. All right, here we go. Let's see if this thing fits. All right. Oh my God. Only a small adjustment to make. Whew. Lucky, lucky, lucky. All right, I'm rubbing a little bit across there. And it is minimal, so, all right. Okay, so what I did was I removed the screws from the fixed set and moved them over to the slotted set so that I could adjust, the drawer up and down to do the drawer face, because once I put that hinge on, you can see that it's fixed, so there's no changing it. So anyway, that was my fix, and now it closes perfectly. The last step was to install the drawer pull, and this project was finished. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.